What's up, everybody? Super psyched about today's guest, Daniel Davison, who could presently be seen ripping up the drums in Buffalo, New York's Every Time I Die. Daniel was also the founding member of Norma Jean, which is really cool talking to him about that because I'm a big fan of both Every Time I Die and Norma Jean. He also played in Underoath and also learned of another cool project he worked on called The Color Revolt, which we spoke a little bit about. But we get into Daniel's other gig, video directing and editing, plus long tours, how he got into the Every Time I Die gig in the first place, and the process of acclimating to the furious musical pace, the punk rock fury of those songs, the previously existing songs, and the songs that would become the songs on Low Teens, and we talk a little about the recording of that record as well. I should also say that I got to check out the Webster Hall gig the night of the interview, and Every Time I Die slayed as always, man. They're just such a great live band. And their show earlier this year at the Williamsburg Music Hall was hands down one of my favorites of the year. And we actually got to talk a little bit about that gig, which was really cool, and it seems as though he felt the magic was in the air as well. So I think it was a mutually awesome experience, and I'm glad I got to be a part of it. Anywho, stick around. Here we go. Daniel Davison, y'all. Every Time I Die. Crash, bang, boom! I'm here doing a completely different podcast interview than I would normally do. We stumbled upon a lush little public garden space in the ever so scenic East Village of New York City. I'm here with Daniel Davison of Every Time I Die. What's happening, man?
Just hanging out, enjoying this special little park that we found.
So here we are in New York City, hanging out in the East Village in a little oasis. You're originally from Georgia, your band is from Buffalo, and you presently live in Chicago, right?
Yes.
How long you been in Chicago?
I have lived in Chicago for the last 4 years, roughly.
Did it take you a while to get accustomed to the winters?
It did.
It also gets hot there, too, I've heard.
It does, yeah. The seasons are extreme. Although the last winter and summer have been pretty mild, which has been kind of cool. But the first winter that we were there, I think was apparently the worst winter in 30 years or something.
Ooh.
But yeah, and I lived a few blocks from Lake Michigan, on the south side of Chicago, and I like to take walks. So I would every day, even if it was the coldest day of the year, which actually on that coldest day of the year I did walk to the lake. I would take walk to the lake, and it was just crazy when the winter when winter came in, day to day you would see the lake kind of freezing over, and then by the time it was midwinter, the entire lake was frozen, and there's just icebergs out there. But it was so crazy that it was kind of exotic, you know? So it made it fun. So, and the fact that when I was home I guess at that point I wasn't playing with Every Time I Die, so I was just working from home doing film and video kind of stuff, and traveling a little for that, but I didn't have to commute or anything like that, so I didn't have the normal kind of woes of winter. I could get out and take a walk and then go back home. You know, it wasn't like I had to get out every day. So I kind of enjoyed it.
Wow.
And still do. I don't mind the winters.
Yeah. It is exotic. I think after 12 years of being in New York, I'm a little over it at this point. I kind of would not have to deal with it. I'm always okay growing up in Southeast Louisiana. I can deal with the heat, and obviously it's ridiculously hot down there. You know, I could get as well. But I would almost just rather have sort of the extreme side be the summer and not have to deal with the extreme side being the winter.
No, I feel that. I mean, I would not be opposed to moving to a warmer climate. So,
Well, you are amidst, I guess, you just started now a tour with Every Time I Die, who are notorious road dogs. I know those dudes can cram a whole lot of shows into a small amount of time. I, for instance, saw them prior to when you were playing them. I saw them twice in one night. They played St. Vitus in Brooklyn, and they played 2 shows.
Yes.
And I stuck around and saw both of them.
Nice.
It was awesome.
Yeah, we've done that. That still happens.
Really?
With ETID. Yeah, we did that. I'm trying to think the last time. We've done it a couple times, honestly. I know that when the band has done these Christmas shows for the last 12 years or something around Christmas. It's like a hometown show.
In Buffalo?
In Buffalo.
Okay.
So last year we did 2 back-to-back nights, 2 shows each night. So it was like 4 shows in 2 days.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Damn.
And we've done that another time. I think one of the last times we played Nashville, it was like a small venue, 2 shows in a row. But yeah, it's kind of insane, but it's cool.
When y'all play those back-to-back gigs like that within one evening, are the sets basically the same that you're playing all the other nights, or do you shorten them?
No, they're just as long, especially
Really?
at the Christmas shows. It's like 24 songs or something like that.
Holy moly.
And if it's 2 shows in one night, we'll try. There's definitely some repeat songs in the set, but we try to mix it up as much as we can.
Do you find that when you play those double sets like that you have to scale your energy back? Because from watching you play, I'd say you're a pretty high energy guy.
Yeah, I think that
is the pacing maybe a tad bit different, knowing that you're going to have to do it.
Probably is. I go into it thinking that I need to conserve my energy because it's 2 shows, but then I get like in the moment, you play just like you would any other show, and then you're done and you're totally beat, and then you're like, shit, I got to do that again in like an hour. But it's fine, it's fine.
Now, Low Teens, obviously the first record that you did with them. When did you joined Every Time I Die? When?
It would have been January of 2015, I think. Yeah. Yes.
That would make sense, right? Yeah.
Yep. My first tour was February, like early February. 2015, yes.
I saw you early on when you were playing with them. Low Teens hadn't been released yet. Y'all played Warsaw in Brooklyn.
Yep. That was my first U.S. tour.
Okay.
My first tour with the band was in Europe and the UK, and then we came home and had a little time off, and then that was with the Used, the Brooklyn show. Yeah, that was my second tour with the band. It was the first time in the States, yeah.
Nice, man. And you've had a history. We can talk about some of the other bands as well that you play with. But one of the things that I noticed, having seen, I guess Every Time I Die with different drummers throughout some years, when you joined in, especially the way that I think Low Teens sounds, it sounds like there is an additional level of energy that maybe I was curious. Is that something that you feel like you might have had an impact upon? Like when I listen to Low Teens, for instance, I think, and especially just seeing y'all live, I feel like the energy level is actually even higher than I've ever even seen it.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't intentionally try to add more energy. I don't know how that really happened. I mean, I know that the band dynamic has, I think when we were writing, the dynamic was really good. I mean, it was a very prolific month and a half of writing. Like we had.
Is that pretty much when y'all wrote that record? Like.
Yeah. I mean, when we first started writing, it was just like the amount of material that was just flowing was crazy.
Wow.
It was nonstop. I spent basically 3 months in Buffalo writing. We spent a month and a half writing, and then about a month in the studio.
Was it during the winter?
It was, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So you were just kind of trapped in, just writing and hanging and writing.
Exactly. Like we'd get up, spend all day in the practice space, and sometimes it'd be like a blizzard happening outside.
That's kind of cool.
It was cool, and then you couldn't really do anything other, like after we're done practicing, it's like, all right, go back, and I would play guitar every night, like after practice, basically until I went to bed, and then get up and do that whole thing the next day. Just thinking about the songs and thinking about, I don't know. I enjoy writing. That's one of my favorite parts of being in a band is writing music. So it was like extremely focused, a very focused time. And but anyway, to get back to the question, yeah, it wasn't an intentional thing, but I think just the energy amongst the band was very apparent and very. It was high. The band is always high energy, but I think there was a newness to that would come along with having a new person in the band.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, some of them have said that like positive things. I don't remember exactly what, but just about feeling kind of a sense of newness, that it pushed them in certain ways. And
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah. And as far as live, I mean, I think they've always been a very high energy.
Oh, yeah.
But I know that I'm a high energy kind of drummer in the live setting, so
Definitely.
I could see how that would add a bit of energy, and we all feed off each other. I mean, that's as like cliche as that is to say, but it's true that when you play in a band and you look over and see one of the people in your band getting into it, you're gonna feel it that much more, you know?
Right.
So and that kind of
Elevates the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you, given having played with Norma Jean and I guess Underoath and some of those other bands, do you feel like the Every Time I Die stuff was challenging, meeting sort of the sort of high energy nature of some of those songs? And
Yeah. When they first asked me to like what I thought about maybe joining the band, I was
yeah, well, let's actually start there. So how did you even get the call for that?
Yeah. I went to see them in Chicago in the end of 2014. I think it was like mid-December or something. And they had come through, and they were Architects was on tour with them, and Ghost Inside. And I went to hang out with them, and at them and the Architects guys, good friends of those dudes, and had actually been in touch with the Architects guys about going to the show. Anyway, so get to the show, and I'm like chatting with the Architects dudes, and then Andy walks by, and they didn't know I was going to be there. I hadn't seen them in a while. We've known each other since like 2002, but weren't really like, in touch day to day. But so I bumped into Andy, and he's like, "Dude, what's up? And what are you doing?" They didn't know I had recently moved to Chicago and lived there that long at that point.
Okay.
And last time I saw them, I was living in Philadelphia.
Okay.
So it was kind of like a little out of place,
Yeah.
But anyway, they ended up, they were just like, "It's weird that you're here," kind of thing. We were just thinking about you and kind of chatting about you in the last few days, and we're gonna like hit you up soon. And now you're randomly at the show, and we ended up hanging out like all night that night. And
Very
they
cool.
were like, "Yeah, what do you think about this?" Is Legs is doing like finishing this, and then he has like one more tour in Australia after that. We're basically looking for somebody. So what do you think? So anyway, I was like flattered, and I was like, "Yeah, that sounds amazing. Give me a day to think about it, blah, 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 whatever." Anyway, obviously I ended up saying yes. And then I had a bunch of songs to learn. And so, yeah, it was a little challenging because I had never really played. I mean, I've played Norma Jean and Underoath, which have some fast parts and some technical stuff, but not the like punk rock kind of stuff, like the super fast stuff. So I was a little like nervous about that, but then it came pretty quick,
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was. I think I was more nervous than I should have been, which I think is probably a good way to be.
Sure.
Like, I was just like, I know I can do it, but and then once I sat behind the drums, it was cool. But at that point, I hadn't been playing since the last Underoath show, so it was like 2 years, maybe a little more.
You hadn't really been playing drums at all?
My drums were in storage from the time I moved from Philly to Chicago.
Whoa.
And I guess it had been about, since the Underoath show until then was probably 2 years. So it took me a minute to get back to like ready to go on tour.
I bet.
But it worked out. So, and then it was cool to join, and then we toured for a year and a half before we started writing. You know? So that was maybe 2 years. So we had a lot of time to kind of develop our style together and kind of like the feeling of playing with each other. By the time we started writing, we were very well acquainted with each other's kind of movements and style.
Touring wise, is this some of the more extensive touring that you've done? I mean, I know obviously you were in those, been in a few bands that have toured, but
Yeah, I think this is similar to when I played with Norma Jean, which now it's been about 10 years since I left
Right.
that band. I quit playing with them in end of 2007. But I think it's pretty similar as far as the amount of shows per year, maybe a little more. So yeah, it's definitely on the high end of shows per year. And then with Underoath, I think it was the pacing was a little slower. There was more time in between tours. So yeah, I mean they're touring like Every Time I Die tours like they did 10 years ago. Yeah, there
Right.
hasn't been any kind of slowing down.
you grew up in Georgia near Atlanta or around
Yes.
in and around Atlanta?
Yep.
Right on. What kind of were you a hyperactive child? How were you? Did you have problems in school? I know I did.
Yeah.
It seems to be a running theme with drummers, especially drummers that kind of play aggressive music.
Yeah.
That they're generally kind of weren't the most attentive kids academically growing up.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I was always drawn. I didn't really have problems in school, but I was definitely always drawn to the creative things in school,
Yeah.
like art class, and then kind of made my way through. I mean, I definitely had run-ins with trouble and stuff like that, as any kid does. For me, I guess it was like middle school, but I always somehow managed to be fine at school. But then when I got to high school was really when I started playing. I mean, I guess I started playing music around 7th, 8th grade. Then that became my focus. And,
Exactly.
school was like, yeah, I'll get this done. But
Yeah.
music was the new thing.
Absolutely.
And, in addition to like photography, I got into those around the same time. Art and music have always kind of been side by side for me.
You found your outlets and you stuck with it.
Yeah, and that's what I did, and then started playing with like my kind of friend group was based around music. I had other friends that I'd grown up with, but they kind of fell to the side, and like my immediate friend group became the guys that I would just get together and jam with. And some of that friend group, basically it ended up becoming what Norma Jean was. That was
Wow.
we all learned how to play our instruments together, from like nothing to being a touring band that
Wow.
like ended up becoming our full-time job kind of
Yeah.
thing, which is kind of crazy. I mean, I haven't even really thought about that in a long time, but
Yeah, I mean that's kind of
like-
where it all started, and here you are today. And
Yeah.
We're having this discussion.
right, it's
Yeah.
really weird, but 9th, 10th grade I was jamming with the guys that ended up becoming Norma Jean, and most of them were a little older than me, so
Yeah.
I ended up doing homeschool for my senior year of high school, so we could go on tour. And
Really?
yeah,
Your
'cause-
parents were all cool with that.
Yeah. I mean, it took some like talking into, and
I
it
bet.
was like at that time. I mean, we had already been touring a decent amount, and I was missing school and stuff, and the band was generating a little bit of income, and it was like, Mom and Dad, like the band will pay for the homeschool, whatever it was. I mean, it probably wasn't even that much, but
Right.
that was one of the selling points from my perspective, and which they were probably like, that is not really why we're concerned about it.
Right.
But, yeah. Anyway, that ended up happening, and just basically been touring since.
Yeah.
So with a few breaks in between, as far as like in between bands and that kind of thing.
When you got your first kit, had you played anything like in school, likewise, or was it just like we need a drummer, and you decided, okay, I'll fill in that.
Yeah,
that was kind of the impetus for it.
Yeah, it was. I never did band in school. I had friends that did, but I was never really drawn to that for some reason.
Yeah.
I liked alternative music,
Yeah.
and I felt a connection to that, like, which I was introduced to it from my older sister. She's a few years older than me, so I mean, she showed me Nirvana and Alice in Chains and
Yeah.
those
The
kind of
90s.
bands. Yeah.
Yeah.
And and I felt very inspired by it and like some connection to it, and at first wanted to play guitar, but then I don't really remember how it switched to drums. It wasn't like my friends were like, we need a drummer, you should do drums. It was just like I don't remember how it happened. I must have asked for it in some way, but my mom got me a drum kit for my birthday. Like,
That's
I don't
so strange.
even really remember asking for that. But
Really?
yeah.
That's so bizarre. It's not like parents are going out of the ways to have all that racket in the house,
Right.
like without
No.
a child nagging them to get it.
Yeah, and I don't know if I would have to ask her about that, but in my mind, it was just a kind of I know how it went down for her as far as like she worked in an office next to, there was a pawn shop nearby, and I think
really?
she saw somebody like about to take their drums and pawn them off, and she ended up buying those drums.
Do you remember what kit it was?
It was a Mapex. If I thought long enough, I could remember like.
What color was it?
It
How
was
about
red.
That? All right, so it was a
It
red
was just
Mapex
like
kit that was getting pawned.
Yeah, it was like bottom of the line, you
Yeah.
know, just like starter kit.
Yeah,
like, 5-piece, you know, 2 rack toms, a floor, and probably 1 crash ride and hi-hats.
Yeah.
And then I played that every day before and after school for years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you? I mean, if you were in Georgia, did you have a basement or
I'd set them up in my bedroom, just like typical suburb of Atlanta. Fairly bigger bedroom, but it wasn't like a crazy big house or anything. It was upstairs, so I know it was like my bedroom was right over the living room, and I know it was terrible for my mom and sisters, but
damn,
they were okay with it.
everybody put up with it.
Yeah, so
That is bizarre.
it is. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's funny, actually, when I joined ETID, I set my drum. I got a new kit that could stay with the Every Time I Die trailer or practice space in Buffalo.
Is it red?
No, it's
Okay.
It's just like a natural kind of like wood grain.
Okay, cool.
But my other kit that I already had, I took out of storage and put it in my basement in Chicago. And
Yeah.
that's really the first time I've had a drum set at home. I was about to say since my first drum kit, but there was a time where Norma Jean had a band house for about a year or two in 2002, and
Cool.
I had a kit there. But so I guess
When you say band house, were you all living together?
yeah,
Oh wow.
yeah, which was amazing. That's where we wrote the first record, and yeah, it was just a house in the town we grew up in that my mom. It was like a rental house that she had, and we all lived there and wrote our first record there. So.
Did you all fuck the house up or no?
No.
Oh, that's
we were,
good.
Yeah.
Respectful
Yeah.
kids.
She
That's
let
so
us
good of
live
you.
there for next to nothing.
Okay,
and
so you were
yeah,
like, all right, we got to be cool.
Yeah.
That's nice.
yeah.
That was nice of you. Very responsible.
Yes. Yeah. So, and I know that means a lot to my mom that like she was able to kind of like that was a big way how she supported what I wanted to do creatively, and she's always been supportive of it, and that was a big part of it, letting us live in her rental house.
Yeah, that's amazingly supportive, man. You own an interesting distinction, at least as someone who grew up relatively, I guess, a-religious, you know, that you played in, I guess, it's post-hardcore, but often Christian post-hardcore is the description given to it, I guess?
Not Every Time I Die, but Norma Jean was. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought Every Time I Die was, too.
No, I don't think they've never been affiliated with that.
Oh, that's so funny. A lot of that is kind of the perception, I think, which is funny.
Underoath, I don't know if Underoath was.
Well,
yeah,
Underoath
for sure,
was,
but
okay.
Not Every Time I Die.
Okay, because I was going to ask you, is there a test you take with
Yeah.
each band? If you get a B+ or higher,
Right.
you answer the right questions, you're in the
Yeah.
club, you're good?
Right.
And you're the go-to guy.
Exactly. Yeah, the first 2 bands that I played in were definitely kind of from that quote-unquote scene and affiliated with like a record label that had a lot of bands that were religious or Christian-based, I guess. Every Time I Die has not been affiliated with
Gotcha.
that as far as I know, yeah.
Did you grow up like in a fairly religious household?
No, actually, not. I mean, maybe the typical average amount of religion. You know, you maybe every other year go to a church on Christmas or something.
Oh,
but
okay, so
it was
that's-
not a religious household, but
Gotcha.
But that's something that did become part of my life as like a teenager.
Yeah.
Early teens. Became a part of my life around the time that I got started. I guess. getting into music more seriously as far as playing music.
Uh-huh.
So that's why the roots of Norma Jean were in that, and that was a big part
gotcha.
of that band for a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know, that band still exists, but even though I hadn't been in the band for 10 years.
I love them, man. I think it's kind of ironic that like two of the bands that you've been in when it comes to the sort of post-hardcore style. Of course, like we've said, Every Time I Die, a little bit more on the sort of speedy, spazzy punk rock end of the spectrum, whereas Norma Jean's more the maybe slower groove stuff. Both of which are great styles. You seem to be at home in both of them. You get to play both of them a little bit in Every Time I Die. But when it comes to that style, Norma Jean and Every Time I Die, those are my two favorite bands.
That's awesome.
When it comes to it, like consistently.
Sure.
They've been my favorite bands to both see live and really the only two bands that I really follow.
Yeah, that's cool. That's
So
really
it's
cool.
interesting that you managed to play in both of them.
Yeah, I feel like I get people say that a lot, or that's come up a lot with people that are like, yeah, I don't listen to the only like aggressive bands that I still listen to, or like the bands that you happen to have played in or whatever.
Yeah.
And, which is really cool. But yeah, I think there's since it's crazy that both of those bands have been around for so long.
Absolutely.
And are still making music that's like inspired and inspiring and still like it's not it hasn't been watered down or like it's still like pushing some boundaries, I think, you know.
It's cool. I think it's always a delicate balance for any band that kind of fills any sort of niche, style to retain some of that, but then evolve and not be stagnant, right? So that's always the slippery slope, and I think that's one of the things that I like about both bands is that each album it does evolve, but it retains enough of it to where it's still them, you know. So that's something both of those bands have done really well. I think that's why I've been interested in them, in both.
Sure.
As long as I have.
Yeah.
So
That's
good
cool.
job, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
When you stopped playing with Norma Jean, did you have much time off in between doing the Underoath stuff and then ultimately Every Time I Die?
Yeah.
In those breaks?
Yeah. I think they were both about 2-year breaks. Pretty like similar time-wise. And similarly, after I quit Norma Jean, I was like, that's what I had done since I guess I was 24, 25 at that point. And,
so you did it for about a decade, right?
Yeah, I did it from when I was high school age to I think 24.
Wow.
And so it was like all I had really done. So when I quit, it was kind of like, okay, like figuring out what I was gonna do moving forward.
Yeah.
And I got into, or had already been into film and creating visuals for our show, the Norma Jean show, like creating projection content and all that.
How did you, to interject for a second, did you go to school for that at all, or is that just something you acquired over the years?
I kind of learned myself at the time, like read books. There weren't a whole lot of video tutorials going around on the internet in 2003. So I went to like Barnes & Noble and bought a book on video editing and
really
and learned that at home in between tours and
that's amazing.
Shot Super 8 film, like learned how to do that and for the sole purpose of wanting to do visuals at the show. So we started doing that, and that got me more into experimenting with video and that kind of thing. So that was kind of the natural direction that I took when I stopped doing music full time. So I wasn't really playing a lot of drums, but then this opportunity came up to finish writing a record with a band that I really liked a lot at the time called Color Revolt. They're like an indie rock band from Mississippi.
Oh, okay.
So I jammed with them. They had already written the songs, so they sent me a bunch of demos, and I learned them and went to Mississippi a few times and helped them finish writing. And then we went in. I played 2 shows with them on the way to the studio, where we played all the new songs, and then went into to Asheville and recorded a record,
nice.
Which we did live. because we only had like a week, I think, to do it.
Yeah.
And, it was amazing playing. That was the first time I'd played something other than like super full-on aggressive music, you
Right.
know, which was really fun, really interesting, and they're amazing musicians and great singers. So it was cool to play something that was a little bit more laid back, I guess, and a little more musical.
If she should say either way, I should start listening. But I feel I'm leaving out the best parts. I really think so. Cutting out that man's heart. But what do I know? If I should say I would stay here for the sake of completion.
And I had just finished that record when the Underoath thing came up, and
Damn.
so, which was more of a full-time gig. So I decided to do that, and and then that lasted for a few years, and the band decided to break up, and then I had a few years off, and then Every Time I Die came up. So,
And in those breaks, it sounds like you've been able to fill some of that time doing video work, and
Yes.
and so what are some of the videos that you've enjoyed? And when are you sort of directing some of them and editing them yourself? Is
yes,
that,
yeah,
okay.
that's kind of how it went down. I would hire people and collaborate with different people for the different projects. Like after Norma Jean, when I was still in Atlanta, my wife and I did all the projects together.
She would work in it with it as well. Then.
Yes, yeah, doing kind of the producer role and like
Okay.
set building and stuff like that. I would come up with the conceptual side of it, and we would collaborate on the production side.
Oh.
And then I would direct and edit, and then later down the road in Philadelphia, she would kind of handle the producer role. So and then I would hire like a director of photography, different people to be on set to make sure things got done the way they should, and that would vary from project to project based on the budgets. But
Right. You did a video for Norma Jean after the fact, right? Didn't
I
you?
did,
Did you do the one where they're drinking milk by the pool?
Yeah.
It's so gross.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
Yeah.
I went down to Arkansas to do that and shot it in I think Corey, the singer's, parents' backyard. They had a pool. We basically just had a big pool party with their friends, and I went to that morning, had gone to the grocery store and bought probably like 50 gallons of milk.
I was gonna ask how many gallons, but that seemed about right.
It was basically one or two full shopping carts of milk. And it was the summer in Arkansas, so it was like 100 degrees, and people were. I had somebody fabricate like a vomit machine, you know. So for some of the shots, it was like the overly obviously
projectile
vomiting, but there were also some real ones in there too. So
nice.
So that was a fun one. One of the projects I did while living in Philadelphia was for the band August Burns Red, and it involved setting a car on fire in the city. So that was a pretty big kind of to do with like closing off a street, you know, in the city,
whatever
and
permits you need,
and like having the fire department there and a pyro team and that whole thing, which Philadelphia makes that kind of thing pretty easy. It really wasn't that. I mean, it was a lot of legwork to figure out how to do it. Yeah. But that's a cool thing about Philly is you can do that kind of thing relatively easy. That was a really fun project. I did a short film for the last Underoath video right before we broke up, which they're back together now.
Right.
Like they're,
when you say short film, what was the duration?
It was 25 minutes, I think.
Okay.
And my buddy and I collaborated with a friend of mine, actually from here, on that project, from here in New York. So we shot some of it in Brooklyn, and then some of it in Manhattan, but the most of it we shot in Philadelphia.
Really?
No permits, that kind of thing, just like run and gun in the streets. And
that's great.
One of the things involved like shooting. We spent probably like $500 on fireworks, and we had this crazy fireworks scene, and we did it in this alley in like a pretty busy neighborhood. Somehow we're able to get away with. The police came and everything, but when we told them we were just like shooting for a video, they're like, "Oh, okay, we just want to make sure y'all weren't like causing any trouble." It's just like they have enough shit going on that they have to handle. That
Absolutely.
They're like, "Oh yeah, you guys aren't breaking into these buildings. Okay, you're cool." But anyway, yeah, that's what I tended to do in between music gigs. Was it always was creative, and it was typically tied to music in some way, video-based, yeah.
You and I have interesting parallels in that I've been working in television from everything from editing to post-production stuff to shooting to
Okay.
all of that. Never really did so much with literal film
Yeah.
or any of that. But then, of course, been playing drums and everything. So it's been drumming and television and production-related stuff for, I've been playing drums for a quarter century, but 13 years, I guess I've been working in television.
Okay, cool.
And I been working on these crazy shows. You'll probably get a kick out of this. It's have you seen the show Lock Up?
No.
It's a prison sort of reality docu reality whatever
Okay.
thing, but they go into prisons and interview prisoners. And Netflix picked up 180 episodes of it, of
wow.
which I revisited all 180 episodes that were unarchived them through this vast archiving system that they have, and collectively watched 5.6 days worth of prison interviews. I actually added it up because 45 minutes a piece, 180 episodes. So needless to say, I feel like I've got some PTSD. I need to go
That
talk
is
to a
crazy.
therapist. I've got
Yeah.
some. I mean, obviously, a lot of it is just most of it is the worst of humanity. It's just,
Sure,
you don't
yeah.
want to believe people exist like that.
Right.
Every now and then again, some of it is just kind of funny.
Yeah.
You know, like there's actually some comedic relief
Yeah.
every now and again that's just absurd.
Yeah.
And now I'm on the other side where I'm working on murder mystery.
Yeah.
So now, whereas before it was the prisoners, now it's just the family mourning, having
Right.
had someone that
Yeah,
was
that's super heavy.
so that's what I've been immersed in. I'm ready to. I just want to do like something with puppies.
Yeah.
I want puppies
be
and
great.
kittens.
Yeah.
And
Total
like
change of pace.
yacht rock.
Yeah.
And some nice soft music.
Yeah.
And I'll go home and take an Epsom salt bath with some candles.
That sounds fantastic. Yeah.
That's what I feel like I need right now.
Yeah. So are you watching like the raw interviews, or
The shows had already been edited.
Okay.
So they're already pieced together, and then you have to make whatever adjustments and put it to whatever specs and omit whatever you need
Okay.
to and add whatever updated graphics,
Yeah.
etc.
Okay.
Stuff like that. So it's just really revisiting, but you kind of have to watch the
Watch the
shows
whole
down
thing
in the
in real
process.
time, yeah.
So it's definitely, I know way more about prisons than I could have ever imagined.
Yeah.
Other than a prison guard or an actual prisoner, I'm getting there.
Yeah.
I
That's
know
crazy.
Way more than I would ever want to know
Yeah.
about. But anyway, so yeah, that's our production side
Yeah.
of it in addition to all the
That's
drumming and
cool.
everything.
Yeah.
In any case, going forward, I guess you'll have another month left on this tour.
Yes. Yeah. A little more than a month. I think I tend to round down when I'm talking about.
It's better
how-
for your psyche.
Yeah, but a little more than a month. Yeah.
Okay. Where are some of your favorite places to play? Anywhere. That could be anywhere.
I mean, here in New York, the shows are always amazing. The last time we were here, I think was a Halloween show, and it was just. We were here after that. We were here in Williamsburg.
Yeah.
Earlier this year, back in February, and that show was one of the craziest shows.
I was there.
Okay.
It was the Williamsburg Music Hall.
Yes.
That show was awesome.
Like,
that's the best show I've ever seen of that
It
band.
felt like.
I thought you seemed like you were on fire.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that show was absurd.
It sounded incredible. That venue-wise, because it's kind of the mirror image. I don't know if you know the Bowery Ballroom, but
Yeah.
they're mirror images pretty much of each other.
Yep.
And sound-wise as well, it's bar none my favorite place to see music. As far as
Yeah.
a smaller venue
Right.
that has the best balance of incredible sound and still being intimate and small enough.
Yeah.
The Bowery and Williamsburg Music Hall are my favorite.
Yeah, that's like, to me, the perfect size venue, especially if they don't put up a barricade, which I feel like that venue would rarely do that, but
Right.
I may be wrong. Maybe it's just because I've seen a few shows there.
I've seen shows with barricades there.
Yeah.
I was surprised that they took them down.
Yeah,
and then,
we always push for no barricades.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of venues will do it, but also many aren't allowed to. They have to have one in place. But that show, I just remember it felt so nostalgic because the energy felt like 10 years ago. Everybody's just going crazy, and there's no drama. It's just like everybody's just having fun. yeah, that show is one of my favorites that we've played and that I've ever played with Every Time I Die.
It was awesome.
But yeah, as far as other places, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure everybody says it, but like Southern California shows are always crazy. LA and that kind of region. San Francisco is always one that sticks out in my mind as being amazing. Chicago is a great place for shows. Yeah. And then, I mean, I love getting to travel and play shows. Like we just returned a few weeks ago from a Europe and UK run. And I guess that's for different reasons because I love, like, we played in Copenhagen, which was amazing.
Cool.
But we played a festival called Hellfest in France, which I know there's the Hellfest from the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s in the States. It's a different one. It's one in France, and that was an incredible show, like just absolutely mind-blowing, like looking out to kind of a sea of people. And then by the end of the show, there were probably 200 people on the stage, which doesn't really happen at festivals.
Right.
But we kind of beckoned them to the stage, and usually I was just waiting for the power to get pulled on us. But
they let it roll.
And then afterward, like our sound guy was like, yeah, the production people were like super into it. So that was nice. A surprise. But anyway, yeah.
Where are some of your favorite places to eat?
I love barbecue. So the South, I mean, there's tons of good spots. Being from Atlanta, there's lots of good barbecue places that I like to go to there. Or in Mississippi, there's a place called Letha's Barbecue that's my favorite. It's in Hattiesburg.
Oh, cool.
I love pizza. So I mean, that's as generic of an answer as one could say, but almost any like neighborhood spot in New York, I would love to just get a New York slice.
Yeah.
I live in Chicago, but I'm not really too into the deep dish.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a pretty simple eater, so like pizza, burritos, and a good like Italian sub, are pretty much good for me. Or tacos.
Nice.
Yeah, again, like California, I love taco stands.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
My neighborhood in Chicago, it's called Pilsen, and it's the best Mexican food in the city. So
cool.
I love eating there.
Nice.
Yeah.
One last question, man. Any particular gig that sticks out as being, and that could be Norma Jean, Underoath, it just in general, as just being really fucking bizarre, or just a total train wreck?
Those both definitely exist. As far as a train wreck, I have such a weird memory when it comes to that stuff. I typically, I think, I don't do it on purpose, but it's hard for me to, if it was like terrible, it's like, I block it out probably. I mean, I know there's shows where I've personally had train wrecks where it's like, I just straight up forget what part I'm supposed to go into.
Oh yeah.
On the next part, and it's like, that's probably only happened twice ever. One of which was like last summer on Warped Tour, playing outside in the heat and just like had a total like brain fart and just kind of stopped, and then you kind of flail your arms around and then somehow
get back on it.
Yeah.
The whole band's looking back at you like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and there's no explanation.
Right. Blame it on the heat, man.
Exactly.
You're seeing stars.
Yeah.
How you want me to
Literally,
concentrate?
like,
I've played gigs like that.
Yeah.
You feel crazy.
Yeah, it's absurd. I mean, but as far as like bizarre gigs, that Halloween show when we were here last Halloween at Irving Plaza, where we decided to just kind of go as like dad rocker kind of dudes.
Oh, I saw pictures from that. I tried to get in that show sold out, so I wasn't able to see it. I was aware of it.
Yeah.
I think I literally came down here thinking I was going to be able to get in, and I couldn't.
Yeah, it was just kind of this funny idea, and we stopped on the way to the show, I think that day, maybe the day before, at like a Kohl's, to get just stupid clothes. And then Keith kind of came up with this whole bit like that day, and it somehow just went over so smooth. But I mean, it was a really bizarre show because we were all in character from the beginning to the end of the set.
What was the character? What character were you on? Because I didn't get to see it.
Just like dad rockers. So
okay.
like, Affliction shirts.
Oh,
like,
nice.
I mean, I had like a long fake goatee and like just like some sort of like skull do-rag and sunglasses, drum gloves.
Awesome.
That kind of thing. And then, the rest of the guys similarly were doing their thing. I mean, Andy looked like just some dude's like ripped uncle, like it looked too real on him, like just uncle sunglasses, like tucked in golf shirt. But then like Jordan had like spiked like a rocker spiked leather sleeve kind of thing on, and cut a mullet, and smoked a cig on stage, or like came out on stage with a cig.
Awesome.
I don't know. It was just like very over the top, like mid to late 40-year-old cover band is what it looked like. And we all had our different name. Like we had names, and Keith introduced all of us, and we did like little solos. I don't know. That's very
awesome.
Bizarre.
Is there video of that? There
amazing.
has to be.
Yeah.
Little clips or whatever.
Yeah, like 1 or 2 minute clips. But yeah, it was
awesome.
It was great. We ended up releasing a shirt because the band, we played as another band and said that every time I couldn't make it, and we were
that's awesome.
We were there to fill in. Anyway, yeah, we called it Embarking Towards Infinity's Door.
Embarking Towards Infinity's Door.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And we had like a spray painted banner that we made and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a very bizarre but fantastic show.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, shit, I look forward to seeing y'all tonight, man. It's totally bizarre. I'd like to think that I planned this out, that we would just stumble on a public garden and hang out.
It was amazing.
But hey, man, it worked out.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and look forward to hanging out at the show.
Absolutely. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks again for tuning in, and thanks to Daniel for being the nicest guy ever and taking the time to rap with me just prior to the Every Time I Die set. Check out the links in the description for more information and more awesomeness, and subscribe in iTunes to this podcast if you haven't already. So here we go. Bam! Crash, bang, boom!